Okay, during 2022, I watched or rewatched 36 horror movies. Not every one of these is a new film that came out during the past year, they're just the ones I saw within the last 12 months. Here they are from my least to most favorite, starting with...
It's the biggest piece of dog.
This is in contention for worst movie ever made, and I have literally not a single positive thing to say about it. A combination of a bad Hellraiser movie and a Seven ripoff. I did not expect much, and I did not receive much, so no harm, no foul, I guess. This had a budget of $36 million and used more post-production stabilization than even the dog movies that I make. I do not think any of the Scream films worked past the first one, and the reveal in this particular movie I found extremely senseless and purposeless, and the killers here would not have been able to achieve any of the things that they somehow pulled off.
So that's it? What, we some kind of...
Scream Cuddy?
This movie is obviously ridiculous in pretty much every way, but I can't lie, watching it was an enjoyable experience, and I actually think this specific guy doesn't do a bad job, so there is that. This is a WWE studio movie, and even though I really do think it's pretty bad, I actually kind of like it. Kane is a real presence, and the setting is one you do not see that often. I like Kyle Gallner. This movie got a lot of love and praise, and that's great, but I found it really unabashedly unoriginal and uninspired, and I don't think a single one of the 10,000 jump scares was effective at all. I actually kind of liked the first part of this movie, and I thought it might end up having a message that I could have found kind of moving, but by the end I felt my time had been wasted, and even though I do not like any of these new Halloween films, I still somehow felt cheated and robbed of a real conclusion. I have never felt more guilty or worse in my entire life about not liking a movie. The filmmaking and story of how this film came to be are just commendable. The animation and creativity on display are incredible, but I cannot lie and will not lie about my personal experience with any film, and this one just really dragged for me. I didn't enjoy watching it, and I hate that that's true, but it is true. I watched this because I like Sydney Sweeney, and I think she deserves better. There are good things here, there's creative shots and a fairly interesting concept, but in the latter half of this film there is a massive switch or twist, I guess, and it just tanked. I watched this because my youngest brother made me, and I was definitely biased going in thinking I would not like it, and I didn't. There are a few lines or scenes, I guess, that I thought were actually kind of profound, but this film, both in concept and execution, is laughable. This was actually a rewatch for me after many years, and I don't really think it holds up that well. It's funny sometimes, but that's really the only good things I have to say. I have forgotten every single thing about this movie. Boyd Holbrook was in The Predator, so... The fact that I didn't entirely despise literally every second of this is why I didn't rate it as low as some of these other movies, and it did take some steps to differentiate itself from the original, but overall it was unnecessary and not that engaging. I think Sinister is really great. I had a hard time taking this seriously. To me, it felt the entire time like the atmosphere from Sinister was trying to be recreated, but it really wasn't working. I honestly never feared for Finney, even though Ethan Hawke does a really good job. Okay, so now that we're through the movies that I really did not enjoy that much, we'll move on to the ones that I thought were just kind of okay, middle of the road type thing.
It's decent! Tell him, lad, it's decent!
If you think this is better than Predators or Predator 2, you're high as f***. This was another rewatch. It's actually the third time I've seen this movie, and I always get a ton of flack from horror people for this, but I do not think this is that smart or meaningful of a movie. It gets worse every single time I see it, and while I do think it's genuinely disturbing, I think the violence is pointless overall, and this film really is just kind of pretentious torture porn. Great cinematography, great acting from Elle Fanning, boring ass movie. Thematically layered, a solid turn by Sean Harris, a really creepy puppet. The execution is fairly unique, but this is a boring ass movie. This one I had been trying to find for a really long time, and I think it's one that I want to like more than I actually do. There's a lot of really good stuff here, but I think in some of the ways the film chooses to be strange, it kind of loses me. Okay, that's it for the ones that I thought were so-so, so now let's move on to the ones that I think are good, not necessarily great, but ones that I did enjoy.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The The trailer for this movie scared the shit out of me when I was a child, and while religious films that seem to shed like a positive light on the Catholic Church tend to really annoy me, I still found this actually pretty good. Again, this was another rewatch, and while I do think this is still one of Mike Flanagan's good films, it kind of gets silly, I guess, with every subsequent viewing. There are several really effective scares, and his cast is great as always. I found this kind of hard to follow at a few points, but the effects were really great, the costumes are cool, and the mystery is engaging to unravel as you go, and Sam Neill does a really good job. He knows how to pick good horror movies to be in. David Bruckner is the man, that's it. I didn't love this movie, but I do not have any real harsh criticism. Mia Goth is really great in this. I am not entirely sure if I grasp why both this movie and X need to exist, and I don't 100% necessarily think they complement each other that well, but this is a director that clearly cares a lot about horror movies and original work, and I'm definitely going to go see Maxine. It's original, there's cool gore, and it's just overall pretty enjoyable. I was so pumped up when the trailer for this came out. This is the kind of horror that I live for. I didn't really love this movie, same as Pearl, but they are both directed by a guy that clearly cares a lot about what he does, and that's exactly what we need. Effective in being disgusting, great acting aside from the delivery of just one line, it just overstayed its welcome a little bit for me. It was a good movie. Jessie Buckley is seriously so good in this movie. It's one of the best performances of the entire year, no doubt. And Rory Kinnear, I can say the exact same thing for him, and he plays like 87 people, so it's really cool. This one I feel like I can't really talk about. You kind of need to see and decide for yourself. If you know nothing and try to guess where things are going, I promise you're probably going to be wrong. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. This is one of the best horror reboots by far, and Jamie Clayton is awesome.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
To me, this wasn't the best horror film that I saw this year, but it probably is my favorite horror movie that I saw this year. This stuck with me for months. I'm not going to say anything about it, just see it. This movie was a little slow. There's a few moments that left me with a genuine frown, and I say that in the most flattering way possible. Not as good as Get Out, much better than Us, great acting, cool designs, funny, genuinely horrifying at one point. Pretty much everything you can expect from a Jordan Peele film at this point. Not a very conventional movie, perhaps most notably in certain ways that make a horror movie a horror movie, but it mostly works for me, and I really like the way it was shot, and I think Scott Hayes is a really underrated actor. It's subtle and presented in a way that I can appreciate.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Okay, so this is pretty wild. When I saw this trailer, I thought it looked like straight up ass. I never thought it would wind up being one of my absolute favorite movies from the entire year. Though I don't love every single thing here, such as how they used the license music, even though I thought it was fitting, it drove me up the wall. There is so much to enjoy and admire about this movie. The acting and lighting are probably my favorite things here, and the original score as opposed to the licensed music is awesome. Not sure how I feel about the ending, but everything leading there is extremely engaging and a blast to watch. Okay, that's gonna about do it. I'm sure at least one of these opinions is probably gonna make at least one person mad, so if anybody wants to praise movies that we both like or argue about where we disagree, hit me.